If you're enjoying the Health Geeks Book Club podcast, we'd appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, leave a like, rating, or review, whichever your preferred podcatcher platform allows.
This edition of our podcast is brought to you by 360 Health and Well Balanced Nutrition.
Welcome to the Health Geeks Book Club podcast. Listen in as Kristen Norton and Eleanor Russell review all those great health and wellness books you've been wanting to read or you have read and want to talk about. Here's Kristen and Eleanor.
All right, Eleanor, I know that we wrapped up Essentialism, but I got to be honest, it has been a very important book for me and really great timing because I've been able to pull so many gems out of this as I'm working on my own time management. And of course, I'm always working on my wellness as a health geek, right?
Yeah.
So can we talk about it a little more?
Yeah, so for those of you just tuning in to part 2 here and maybe haven't listened to the other part, we're continuing a conversation about ideas that came to us from Greg McKeown. Tell me again, Tim.
McKeown.
Thank you. Who wrote this book, Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. And so we thought we'd said everything we wanted to say, but we have more to discuss.
Absolutely. Do you want to start?
Well, you had something I think might have preceded where I want to jump back in.
Okay.
You were going to talk about buffering.
Yes. So towards the end of the book in part four, about executing. So once you do the work of exploring, figuring out your values, eliminate, say no, then he gets into, okay, how do you do the work? And part of it is that successful people have a buffer. And this was just such a big aha. I'm sure people have told me to do this before, but I'm always late, have an issue with time management. I can relate when he says
I knew we were kindred spirits.
I do that. Like I could relate when he said that non-essentialists think that everything takes 5 minutes.
Oh, yes.
Yes, why is that?
I have problem with, I used to set the clock back and my husband would say, Eleanor, time is time. You know, why 10 minutes, Eleanor time is 10 minutes off from everybody else's time. And why?
Why?
He didn't ask me what happened to me, though.
I'm trying to unlearn.
It was probably more of the what's wrong with you.
Yes, that's exactly what he was saying.
Why can't you get this time thing right?
And it's like, Eleanor, you've known since January that classes were going to start on August 15th. Why can't you be ready? Because the night before August 15th, I'm thinking, oh, is my syllabus ready? Do I have all the things I need? Do I have, and he would just scratch his head and go,
Yeah, so I'm very motivated by that urgency of the night before, whereas I have a hard time getting motivated to do the small thing way in advance so you can work your way
Let me
up.
ask you this. When you go on a trip with your family, do you make, like 3 weeks ahead of time, do you make a list of what you need to have in the suitcase and in the car or ready for I think we have talked about this before.
I do now.
I think you missed the passport or something. But that idea of laying things out, knowing that they'll be there and that you've thought it through and didn't forget to put the toothpaste in. I'm not good at that. I think, I have other things I want to be doing right now. And that only takes, you grab it and run and we're good.
Right. You're good. We can do that later.
Yeah. And when we grab it and run, it's like frenzy and people are sitting there tapping their fingers in the car. Are you going to get in the car? No, there's one more thing I got to get.
So if you can relate to this, the part 4 of Essentialism where he's talking about execute, it just has some gems that you could just... pointers that I am trying to apply. And one of my favorite is the buffer. And he says that successful people put a buffer around everything they do. So just say that whatever you need to do is going to take 50% more time than you think it is. And that buffer will be helpful because, successful people think of the worst case scenario instead of the best case scenario, which kind of blew my mind. I'm like, well, no, we want to be positive here.
Yes, exactly.
But when you're managing your time, like And a non-essentialist, which is me sometimes, will say, well, it took me 5 minutes to get from point A to point B one time when everything was going smoothly. So it will always take me 5 minutes to get there. Whereas the smarter strategy would be add 50% because you never know what traffic light you're going to run into. If you have kids, what kid is going to go to the bathroom right before you need to leave, or whatever it is. That buffer time. And in the past couple weeks, I've been like visually putting that buffer on my calendar. And I've found that I get things done. I don't skip over things. I don't forget things when I allow myself that buffer of time. So that's been kind of a lifesaver for me. Thank you, Greg.
Well, I wonder how that's going to go into the future. I hope
I can continue that.
I have a friend, and we often talk about when we do some of these things at work and they're working for us, they're working so great, we stop doing them.
Yeah.
It's like, why would
they're
we keep
novel
that?
at
Why would we
first.
keep that up? And then it's like, God, what were we thinking? You were talking about the unexpected and adding the 50%. I have another product line besides my wellness products, but it's a business wellness product that has to do with maintaining client records.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been talking, we have a community, a relationship community. The ones that I was talking about, the BLTs, that comes out of this group, where you need to belong, you need to be loved, you need to be trusting and safe.
Yeah, listen to the last episode for more on that. Yes,
that's right. And I love that whole thing. So anyway, this group is saying, when you meet with somebody and you listen because you're a good listener and you want to remember these people, you should not put another appointment back to back.
And I did that.
I do it all. I have been doing it all the time. And so what I have, since we were talking about how do you and I incorporate these things in our lives, for the last two weeks now, this is a success for me. I've actually done some weekly planning. I've looked at my calendar. I have tried to decide what is the priority. And it's not all day long that's the priority. It's going to be the priority in this amount of time. So I will be doing my business within certain frameworks. I'll be doing my personal stuff within, so I'm putting some boundaries on where I do these things, and I'm kind of liking the way it feels. That I'm not available to everybody at every minute, which is kind of the way I've been operating, because I want to help everybody with their problems, or their issues on their time, not on my timetable, but on theirs. So with this booking of these appointments, I'm consciously trying not to put them back to back. But then the next step is within that little window to reflect on what I've heard and understand what their need might be, and then design something that would be the next step for the process with them. So I'll let you know how that goes. But yeah, I think that buffer is a great idea.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It sounds like we're doing really similar things.
We saw something in
calendar.
that we both could use, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And similar, what you said sparked something else that I really liked from the book. You said, I want to help everybody on their own time, but I'm starting to set some boundaries. And in the chapter on setting boundaries in Essentialism, there was this wonderful story or analogy that two parents came to a psychiatrist or a therapist and said, I need you to fix my son.
Oh, God. Okay. And how long did their therapy sessions go?
Yeah, right. And their therapist said, does he want to be fixed? Does he want to work on this issue? And they're like, no, and that's why we're here. And what he told them is, don't rob people of their problems. And he says, imagine a neighbor who never watered his lawn, but when you turn on your sprinkler system, the water falls on his lawn. Your grass is dying, but Bill, your neighbor, looks at his grass and thinks it's doing just fine. Everyone loses. Your efforts are wasted, and you need fences to keep his problems out of your yard and in his where they belong.
Yeah, that lesson about enabling is a critical lesson in development for all of us, I think. And some of us never learn it, and we keep trying to make other people right.
Yeah.
And we'll never be happy because we can't do it for someone else.
And how this relates to us, in my opinion, we're talking about managing our time and setting our boundaries. It's all too easy when you don't have those boundaries to just think someone else's emergency is your problem.
Exactly.
So if I just used to be checking emails all day, like what can I do for someone else? Who needs me for something? And that guided what I did instead of setting, these are my priorities. This is the block of time I'm going to work on it.
And there are a few people that their urgencies will be my urgency.
That's true.
Yeah, but I know who they are.
And you know who they are.
Yeah, and I'm very clear on who they are.
And
Right.
why.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Perfect example of priorities and boundaries.
Yeah, and getting that clarity of, that's one of the first steps, is a clarity of purpose. What are we trying to become, and who are we trying to become, and how do we do that, and what are the choices? His premise on you have choices.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't make a choice, you just made a choice.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you keep putting it off, the decision will be made whether you have any input to it or not.
I liked the be selective, the criteria, having a strict set of criteria.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's hard, if it isn't a clear yes, then it's a clear no.
That's a good one, yeah. And I've struggled with that, particularly in relationship to my church activities over the years. If I've been asked, I've felt like I'm supposed to say yes, because, this is God's work, right? I'm not going to say no to that. But I found there was a place where I thought, if I don't do this and it doesn't get done because there's nobody else that's going to step up and do this, did it need to be done in the first place?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It took me a long time to get to where I had that observation and could say, no, I'm not going to do that. And you can let someone else have that opportunity, which is don't rob someone else of an opportunity. Because a lot of times those of us that are perceived as capable will take the opportunity away from someone else because we can
solve the problem.
Right. And that may not be helpful to the community if, because let's say you get to be the person that does everything and then something happens to you. What happens to the community? It doesn't move because there was nobody else that knew how to do what you were doing. And so that idea of too much control because it feels good and it builds your reputation and then you get sort of self-absorbed. We've seen that dynamic happen and rather than let someone else have that opportunity.
Right, pass the torch.
And I've gotten a little better about that with my elder years.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
I get reminded of similar parenting advice, right? Like a good parent doesn't do everything for your child. So when my kids complain, why don't you help me? I'm being a good parent. I'm letting you figure it out. And they roll their eyes.
Yeah. So I think when we read that book, What Happened to You, there was a conversation about parents who solve all their kids' problems really do them a disservice because after they are like university age and they think everything's supposed to be easy.
They have no resilience.
Exactly. They do not know how to survive a minor catastrophe, much less a big one.
Yeah.
Like dropping out of college because you didn't go to class. Yeah, that happened. Oh, experience there. Okay, so in this, you were talking about the buffering. I wanted to kind of jump over to the focus, and the two last chapters are towards the end of the book. They talk about focus, what is important now, and this Thich Nhat Hanh, who some of you may be familiar with, this wise person's advice. He says, life is available only in the present moment. If you abandon the present moment, you cannot live the moments of your daily life deeply. And then the next chapter's on be, to be. And it says, Socrates says, beware the barrenness of a busy life. And so when I think about all the advice I'm hearing right now about live in the moment, be present now, be attentive now, part of me is going, I believe that I'm totally aware with what's going on. But if I don't think about the future, it might actually get here, and that idea that some forward thinking has to be an okay thing to do somewhere. Because if I'm present in every moment, there's never any looking forward. There's looking here now. And I do think there's no future and there's no past. There is now. That's all we've got. But I do think in most cases, time does move us to a future. And if we have not prepared that, I don't struggle with that. Do you ever think of those things?
Yeah, I do. It seems like we really need a balance of time to plan, time to reflect and learn from the past,
and to be
and
present.
then time to be present. Mm-hmm. And honestly, just in the past month, with my personal journey to be more present and intentional and mindful of where I spend my time, it's interesting because I'm so used to feeling a bit nervous or anxious about where I spend my time, that now that I feel like I have it managed a little more, I have this blank space that at first it's like, oh wait, what am I supposed to be doing? And then I'm realizing, oh, this is where I just get to be because I've taken care of the planning, the prioritizing. And now I just have time to go play a game with my kids.
And enjoy it. Not be thinking about what I should be doing instead.
Exactly. Because I used to not be as organized during my workday, and then it would interfere with my evenings with my kids because I was worried about the things I forgot to do or didn't get done, and I couldn't be present.
Yeah, and this author talks about the word about time, and the Greeks had two words for time. One was chronos, which is like the ticking of the clock, the chronological time, and the second was kairos, and kairos is different. While it's difficult to translate precisely, it refers to time as opportune, right, or different. And I think that's what you were experiencing there with your children, was the kairos, that this is meaningful. It's different than just the ticking of the clock, and it's moving, and I got to stick with the clock because it's the hour's going to go. I read something, I'm not sure which book it was in. I don't think it was in either of these. They were talking about when we used to have wind-up clocks that had chimes, and they would ring every hour. That they were kind of a reminder to people to take a breath and take a moment and just be grateful.
I have been doing the Pomodoro method.
Oh yeah, I love that thing.
Where you set the
do
timer.
People out there know what Pomodoro is?
Pomodoro is where you set the timer for 25 minutes and focus on your work, one thing usually during that time, and then you take a 5-minute break, and then you get back to it and focus on something else. And
I love that thing.
I found it really helpful. Yeah. I needed some accountability to try it out at first, but I think I'm going to stick with this.
Yeah, and I don't use it all day, but I use it for projects, like particularly things I don't want to do.
Yes, that's when it's the best.
I will say, okay, this is a priority. And learning how to make that priority joyful is something that these authors have been talking to us about in several of our books, is how to find joy in the mundane, because then it's good. So I think that when I don't want to do something, that little challenge with the Pomodoro makes it fun. It makes it a little bit fun. Like, oh, I can do this. And I know I'm going to get up and walk outside and, but I'm going to do this first because I do want to have this thing done, because having this thing done will make my life better in the future.
Exactly. Yeah. And it produces some urgency for me because I have this little timer where I can see like the time ticking down. It's like a little pie, piece of the pie. So I'm like, oh, I got 10 minutes. I can finish this in 10 minutes. Go, 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 go.
Yeah. And you focus.
You do.
Yeah, you do. And who was the author that did the book, the North Carolina author, The Lazy Genius Way?
Yes, Kendra.
Kendra was talking about doing the bathrooms and how awful she hates cleaning bathrooms. And so I would think a Pomodoro would be great for that. It's like, okay, I hate it, but it's only 20 minutes. I can do anything in 20 minutes.
Exactly.
And that paradigm shift in the mindset because of that little tool is very helpful.
Yeah. Well, awesome. I think I'm proud of us, Eleanor. We are taking away some really great gems from these books and applying them and
testing the waters.
Testing the waters. So we invite y'all to be essentialist as well, because it's really freeing.
Yeah. I'm totally with you. I'm Eleanor at 360health4u.com.
And I'm Kristen Norton with Well Balanced Nutrition, wellbalancednutrition.com.
And opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and are not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted, and no part can be reproduced without the expressed written consent of Kristen and Eleanor.